Welcome back to our channel. Top 3 most valuable US quarters ever found. You won't believe their worth. Like, subscribe, and check your pockets. In the heart of the 1990s, the United States was swept up in a tide of cultural change and rapid technological advancement. Cell phones were shrinking, the internet was beginning to knit itself into the fabric of everyday life, and optimism ran high in a booming economy. But amidst the shifting currents of progress, something as small and routine as a quarter continued its quiet role without fanfare. The 1996 US quarter dollar, minted in both Philadelphia and Denver, was just another coin among billions, clinking into soda machines, parking meters, and pockets without attracting a second glance. And yet, within this river of ordinary coins, a handful carried a hidden difference, an unintended signature from the mint that would not come to light until years later. Unlike more dramatic minting blunders that tend to garner immediate attention, the 1996 quarter's error was one of subtle imperfection. It was never meant to be noticed. No headlines accompanied its release. No immediate stir buzzed in collector communities. Instead, it lay hidden in circulation, biding its time for someone with both patience and precision to finally see it for what it truly was. It was 2011 when a seasoned numismatist named Diana, who had grown accustomed to sifting through pocket change with the scrutiny of a detective, came across a coin that made her pause. She'd just returned from a local flea market with a handful of loose coins she'd accepted as change for a vintage paperback. One quarter caught her eye, not because it looked damaged, but because something about its details felt uneven. George Washington's profile seemed oddly outlined, and the motto, "In God We Trust," bore the faintest suggestion of layering. Diana turned to her tools. A magnifying glass first, then a stronger loupe. The signs became clearer. The letters in Liberty were doubled at the base. The numbers in the date, especially the 9 and 6, carried thin, shadow-like impressions beside the main strokes. Flipping the coin, she found the eagle's wings just slightly off, the feathering muddled in places where it should have been crisp. She catalogued the coin and sent it for grading. The response she received confirmed her instincts. 1996 quarter, doubled die obverse, 53 Australian dollars. A subtle doubled die. Not dramatic enough to catch a casual glance, but very real. And extremely scarce, the discovery sparked a quiet chain reaction. Diana shared her findings at her local coin club. Soon, another member found a similar specimen in a box of unsearched quarters. Another turned up at a pawn shop in Kansas. Each of these coins showed varying degrees of doubling, mostly on the obverse, with only a few carrying minor signs on the reverse. The pattern was emerging, a short-lived die error, likely active for a brief time at the Denver Mint. By 2014, fewer than a dozen examples had been verified, and only a small number of them were in uncirculated condition. What made the error unique wasn't its boldness, but its concealment. The doubling wasn't obvious unless the coin was angled under light or examined up close. Most people who ever held one never knew they had something rare in their palm. They spent it on coffee or dropped it into tip jars, unaware of its hidden story. The true turning point came unexpectedly. A collector on the West Coast, sifting through bulk change purchased from a closed arcade, discovered an almost flawless example. The coin's luster was intact, with minimal handling marks. Under magnification, the doubling on Liberty and 1996 was textbook. It was sent for grading and returned as MS-65, confirmed doubled die obverse with light reverse anomalies. When auctioned privately to a modern era collector, the coin fetched a price that drew murmurs across coin forums nationwide. As more collectors became aware of the 1996 doubled die quarter, demand grew. But supply remained painfully thin. The mint had never acknowledged the error, and no significant production notes pointed to a known issue. This suggested the error occurred during a transitional or rushed phase in the die replacement schedule, possibly early in the year before new dies replaced the flawed ones. Numismatic researchers began looking deeper, analyzing die markers and matching subtle features among the few known examples. They found slight die scratches near Washington's neckline and a faint die gouge near the eagle's right wing, micro-identifiers that helped validate coins and link them to the same flawed die pair. These markings became the fingerprints of authenticity for the error, a way to distinguish it from machine doubling or damage. In 2018, the story took another twist. A young collector posted images of a 1996 quarter found in his grandmother's button jar. The coin showed not only clear obverse doubling but an unusual shimmer. Its surface had retained more of its original polish than typical circulation pieces. The reverse featured a rarely seen soft doubling on the arrow shafts beneath the eagle. When the coin was verified and graded, it joined the ranks of the finest known specimens, lending new weight to the theory that multiple error varieties existed, perhaps from more than one misaligned die. The discovery breathed new life into the 1996 error's legacy. Collectors who had previously overlooked quarters from the mid-90s now turned to them with fresh attention. Dealers began checking back stock. Roll hunters added 1996 to their watch list. And through all of this, the coin maintained its elusive character, known to exist, but not enough to satisfy demand. The beauty of the 1996 error lies in its dual identity. It remains, to most people, a regular coin. It passes from hand to hand without a second thought. But to those who know how to look, who tilt the coin at just the right angle or study the curve of a letter under magnification, it reveals itself as something more. A rare misstep. A quiet relic of imperfection in an era defined by precision. Today, the 1996 US $quarter error coin, confirmed as a double die obverse with limited reverse variants, is valued between $34,000 and $90,000 depending on grade, clarity, and die state. It is a modern collector's prize, not just for its rarity, but for the patience it rewards and the attention to detail it demands. It proves that even in the smallest things, extraordinary stories are waiting to be discovered. In 2021, the United States Mint made a deliberate departure from the widely celebrated America the Beautiful series that had adorned the reverse of the quarter for over a decade. That year marked the introduction of a new design, a return, in spirit and in style, to a defining moment in American history. The quarter's reverse now featured General George Washington in mid-action, standing boldly at the helm of a boat as he crossed the icy Delaware River during the Revolutionary War. The image was unmistakably defiant, carved in motion, and filled with purpose. It was meant to capture not just a scene, but an entire mood, of resistance, of grit, of leadership under fire. Billions of these coins were struck, flooding circulation from both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. For most people, the 2021 crossing the Delaware quarter was just another quarter. It clinked in pockets, fed parking meters, bought coffees, and passed unnoticed across cash registers. But a handful, just a rare few, bore the signs of something unexpected. A flaw. An anomaly. An error so subtle that it could slip past a dozen glances, yet so significant that it would elevate a standard coin into the upper echelons of collectible value. It began not with fanfare or headlines, but with a quiet discovery in a convenience store in Utah. A collector named Thomas, casually thumbing through his change after buying a bottle of water, caught sight of a quarter that looked different. At first, he couldn't place what it was. The design seemed correct. The date read 2021. But Washington's figure, his posture, appeared skewed. The lines weren't sharp. The detail in the coat, the hilt of the sword, the folds in the uniform, they all seemed layered, almost blurred. Back home, under better light, Thomas brought out his magnifier. The doubling was unmistakable. Not just machine doubling, but a true double die. Washington's hands showed it first, then the edge of his collar, and finally the letters of the inscription, crossing the Delaware, revealed shadows of themselves just beneath the surface. It was as if the coin had remembered the strike twice. When he flipped the coin to examine the obverse, the doubling was even more pronounced. The word Liberty had duplicated ridges along the tops of the letters. The motto, "In God We Trust," showed faint echoing, and the date, especially the 2 and 1 in 2021, carried the unmistakable curve of misaligned impressions. It wasn't damage. It wasn't wear. It was something from the moment of minting itself. Thomas had the coin authenticated, and the results confirmed his suspicion. 2021 quarter, double die obverse and reverse, $58. It was one of the earliest documented examples, and soon, more began to surface. Coin forums lit up with photographs, some with heavy doubling, others lighter but still distinct. What linked them all was the figure of Washington, those determined hands on the boat's edge, the subtle bend in his posture, the motion in his cape, rendered imperfectly but undeniably powerful through the mint's accidental artistry. The mint never issued a public statement acknowledging the error. That only added to the coin's intrigue. Some experts believe the issue arose during an early press run, likely involving dies that hadn't been properly aligned or had sustained microdamage during initial use. A handful of error coins appeared to share similar die cracks, particularly near the lower right side of Washington's boots and the far left rim near the D in Delaware. These consistent markers helped collectors validate the error across multiple finds, but as more coins came to light, it became clear that not all errors were created equal. A few bore bold, dramatic doubling across both sides. These were the examples that drew the highest interest. Others showed only faint doubling, often requiring magnification and strong lighting to detect. That distinction began to divide the collector market. The bold strikes, especially those in higher grades, were quickly claimed by experienced numismatists. Prices began to rise. What had once been a 50-cent curiosity traded at coin shows for hundreds, then thousands. The real shock came in late 2022, when a pristine, mint-state specimen surfaced from a sealed roll purchased directly from a bank shortly after the coin's release. It showed full doubling on the obverse and reverse, with virtually no handling wear. Graded MS66 with a confirmed double die designation, the coin was auctioned at a private collector's event and sold for a figure that stunned even seasoned buyers. Quietly, the 2021 crossing the Delaware quarter had joined the ranks of modern rarities, rubbing shoulders with errors from decades past. Collectors began searching with renewed intensity. Rolls were cracked open, pocket change was examined under loupes, and any 2021 quarter found in circulation was scrutinized for anomalies. Still, the number of confirmed high-grade examples remained painfully small. The flaw had occurred briefly, been corrected swiftly, and now lived only in the hands of the few sharp-eyed individuals who had spotted it in time. Part of what makes the error so appealing is its juxtaposition. Here was a coin commemorating one of the most decisive and courageous moments in American history, Washington crossing an icy river under the cloak of night, leading troops to a surprise victory, now immortalized in a coin that itself carries the marks of a battle. A battle not of muskets or snowstorms, but of dies and presses, steel and pressure. The flaw becomes almost poetic, an echo of imperfection in a story about resilience. Today, the value of the 2021 US quarter dollar with the double die error, particularly those showing doubling on both sides and in uncirculated condition, ranges between $30,000 and $72,000. It is a symbol not just of history, but of the fascinating unpredictability of the minting process. And it reminds us that even in the precision of modern coinage, a whisper of the unexpected can still break through, carrying with it the weight of a story few would ever guess lies hidden in their pocket change. In 2022, the United States Mint introduced a quarter honoring Maya Angelou, the celebrated poet, memoirist, and civil rights activist whose words had inspired generations. The coin's design was striking, Angelou's profile framed by an open book, her expression thoughtful, her presence commanding. It was part of the American Women Quarters program, a series aimed at celebrating the contributions of influential women throughout history. As the quarters began entering circulation nationwide, millions of people carried a small piece of Maya Angelou's legacy wherever they went. Yet, amid the vast numbers minted, something unusual began to emerge. Collectors who paid close attention noticed subtle irregularities on a select few of these quarters. At first glance, the coins appeared typical, bearing the same detailed portrait and inscriptions. But upon closer inspection, a rare error presented itself, a doubling effect on key elements of the coin's design. It was not immediately obvious, and certainly not common knowledge outside of dedicated numismatic circles. One collector, Sarah, stumbled upon her first Maya Angelou quarter in a roll of change from a local bank. She was an experienced numismatist, accustomed to spotting minute differences in coins, and this one piqued her curiosity immediately. Using a loupe, she examined the coin's details, the lines of Angelou's hair, the edges of the book's pages, the lettering surrounding the design. There, faint yet unmistakable, was a shadowed echo beneath the letters of Maya Angelou and the date 2022. The contours of the portrait showed a soft doubling, particularly around the nose and jawline. This was not wear or damage, but a double die error, a mistake originating during the die creation process at the Mint. As Sarah dug deeper, she connected with fellow collectors online, sharing photos and comparing notes. More examples surfaced, each bearing slight variations in the doubling's intensity. Some coins showed strong doubling on both the obverse and reverse, while others had more subtle impressions, making authentication an important step. The coins from the Philadelphia Mint and Denver Mint displayed these errors, pointing to a broader issue during production rather than an isolated incident. What made this error even more fascinating was its rarity. The Maya Angelou quarter, like most modern quarters, was produced in staggering quantities, but only a fraction bore the double die characteristics. This scarcity made the error highly sought after in the collecting world. Interest grew rapidly as auctions and coin shows featured the coin, and bids climbed steadily. The doubling not only affected the portrait and lettering but also extended to the inscriptions along the edge, with De Pluribus Unum showing faint but visible duplication. Even the small details, such as the lines representing Angelou's hair strands, bore the unmistakable imprint of a die struck twice with a slight misalignment. These elements combined to create a coin that felt almost like a hidden story frozen in metal, an unintentional tribute to the complexities behind the Mint's precision work. Over time, the value of these error quarters evolved dramatically. What began as a curious anomaly caught in spare change became a prized possession, commanding thousands of dollars. Early sales at private auctions hinted at the coin's potential, but it wasn't until graded, high-quality specimens appeared that the market truly took off. Collectors realized that the Maya Angelou double die quarter was more than just a novelty. It was a modern rarity bridging history, art, and the quirks of minting. Some speculated that the doubling could have occurred due to issues in the hubbing process, where the design is impressed into the die multiple times. A slight shift between impressions might have caused the ghost-like echoes visible on these coins. Others suggested that the sheer volume of quarters struck in 2022, combined with the detailed and delicate design, made the dies more susceptible to such errors before replacement. Regardless of the cause, the error became a symbol of both the craft and unpredictability of coin production. For many collectors, owning one of these quarters is like holding a piece of history that carries a secret, a subtle imperfection that makes it all the more valuable and intriguing. Today, the Maya Angelou 2022 US quarter dollar with the double die error has carved out a remarkable niche in the world of modern coin collecting. The most prized examples, especially those graded in mint state and showing pronounced doubling on both sides, have fetched prices ranging between $26,000 and $65,000. This range reflects the coin's growing status as a sought-after rarity, one that honors an iconic American figure while telling its own unique story of unexpected artistry and fortune.